It's a job that never really ends. You're always trying to look at what you can learn from a weekend and apply it to the next one. What encouragement can we take from Jeddah that gives us hope for the future races? Well, we're under no illusions what that performance gap is. And in Jeddah, it was ultimately a bit bigger in Bahrain. But we've got quite a lot to find, both in qualifying and on a long run, if we want to challenge the Ferrari and the Red Bull cars. However, behind us, it looks like we have a bit of margin to that midfield. We need to do a good job to be ahead of them, but we have a bit of margin. And that buys us a bit of breathing space to allow us to experiment on the weekends, to try and bring solutions to lift the level of performance of the car. So ultimately, though, this is a problem that's going to be fixed back at the factories, both in Brackley and Brixworth. Everyone's working very hard to try and understand the issue and bring solutions. And we're going to be doing that in a phased way over the next few races. At the track, we're going to be doing as much as we can to minimise damage, to score as many points as possible. So really there's two elements to this: maximising the performance in a given weekend, but then the bigger part of this is trying to get back to a level where we can compete for pole positions and for race wins. Why did Lewis struggle in qualifying? Well, there's a few reasons, but fundamentally we don't really understand the car yet as well as we do at the end of the year. We've only had 2 races with it. So we're always exploring the setup with Lewis, trying to find a direction that delivers performance. And we'd found a good direction from Friday into Saturday that he was able to try in the 3rd practice session. We went quite a bit further on that into the qualifying session, but ultimately it was a bit too far. So from the word go, he was lacking rear grip. Jeddah is a street circuit that you need a lot of confidence. It's very fast, the walls are very close, and when you haven't got the rear grip, the driver can't have that confidence. So ultimately we pushed it a bit too far, but it was a useful learning exercise. Fundamentally though, the problem right now is the car's not fast enough, and unless we get it perfect, we're going to be at risk in those sessions. So we need to make a quicker car as soon as possible. Why did Lewis not pit during the virtual safety car? Well, the timing of the events through that meant that there was no window where he could do that. The car had stopped on track. They then deployed the virtual safety car, but when Lewis came to the pit entry, they closed the pit lane, so you're not allowed to come into the pits. After they cleared the car, they then removed the virtual safety car, and after that they opened the pit lane. So as it happens, there was no window where he could have got in and taken that much shorter pit stop under the safety car. What lap were we planning on pitting Lewis? Well, there isn't really an exact answer to that. The situation was that the hard tyres were holding up very well, they were very consistent, and what we were watching at this point was where the McLarens were, that pit stop gap behind us. So the intention with Lewis was to try and pull them out of the window, and we were slowly doing that. I think the lap that we would have stopped at would have been somewhere in that 39 to 40 region, but the intention was always to try and clear those McLarens. Then we would have been racing with Valtteri and the 2 Alpine cars. Our prediction said that we had enough pace to pass them on track, and that would have enabled Lewis to get up to P6 in the final standings. As to why we went for the medium tyre with Lewis for that final stint, well, having started the race on the hard, the only options for us were medium or soft. And the work we'd done earlier in the weekend, and also watching what all the other teams had done, it was evident that the soft was not a very durable tyre. You get 2 or 3 good laps out of it, but then it could start to degrade, and degrade quite badly. So the reason that we did it was the same that everyone stayed off the soft tyre. It was simply that for a stint that's any more than a few laps long, the medium was the faster way to the finish. How do we assess George's weekend, and did he get the maximum from the car? Well, they're really 2 separate questions. Did he get the maximum from the car? Absolutely. He finished P5. We know that there's a big performance gap between us and the Red Bull cars, us and the Ferrari cars. So ultimately P5 is the best that we can do at the moment, and we're working very hard to try and improve that situation. How do we assess his weekend though? Well, it's not just on where he finishes, it's looking at how he's performing through the sessions, how well George and Lewis are working together, which is going really well. They're both very determined to get on top of this car and try and bring more performance to the future races. and he's really settled in very well with the team. So we had high expectations for George. He's delivering on those expectations, so we're all happy. Has our understanding of the W13 progressed through the weekend? Well, it always does, and even at the end of a season, if we look at the last few races of last year's season, we're still learning. With every race weekend, we learn more about the car, more about the tyres, and at the start of a season, that learning rate is even higher. So what we're doing this week is digesting that. There was a lot of experiments that we were doing through the weekend. We've still got to go through some of that data, and analysing that is then going to give us our approach for Melbourne. So it's a job that never really ends. You're always trying to look at what you can learn from a weekend and apply it to the next one. And we know that we need to accelerate that process, try and bring as much performance as we can as quickly as possible. Thank you for all your questions. We will be back after the Australian Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time.